Hello, everyone out there in Keystroke Land. We're talking dialogue today. Those bits of conversation between your characters have much more power than you might think. If you treat each character the same, you run the risk of sounding wooden, like cardboard cutouts. But if your characters can speak, your story comes to life. Join us today with the one and only Ellen Campbell as we dive into the do's and don'ts of dialogue. Ellen, welcome back to the
Hey, how's it
show.
going? How's it going?
It's going swell, going swell. And everyone out there, Leo Vaccaro, Golf
Yay.
Clap Appreciation, thank you for being here.
And Jake Clifton Slater, hello. We hope you're having a good day and maybe that there's some ice cream involved in that day.
Ice cream is good.
So
Ice
I'm
cream.
having a little bit of technical issues. Hopefully I'm not creating double sound because sounds coming out of my computer should be coming out of my headphones, but I'm leaving them plugged in just in case. So I don't know where my sound is going into. So that was why our late start. It's all my fault. I'm sorry. All right. So Ellen, in this delightful conversation of dialogue, which does sometimes, a lot of times, causes us a lot of heartache because we're sitting there and we're kind of digging the vibe, and then we get to these dialogues and we're just like, shoot me. No, I'm kidding. I love you guys. You guys are great. Authors out there.
We love you a lot. We love you a lot. The thing is, a dialogue can add so much to your book. You can drive so much of the story without head hopping and without filtering by discussing things in dialogue. But dialogue, you have to be gentle with dialogue. You can't ham fist it. You can't slap this tag and that beat and go sideways, or it just sounds, in the reader's head, it sounds wrong. It sounds odd. It sounds off. So there are a lot of things that we see that are common problems that we would like to address.
Yeah. We were coming up with the show together as editors and looking at how dialogue comes up so frequently, no matter who our author is that we're looking at, that we're editing and kind of polishing up.
Yeah, and we're not even talking about the stupid things your characters say.
Right. It's kind of the action beats around it. It's the dialogue tags around it. It's the narration. These are things that we fix. And then funny thing is, even, I've spent, this is like what, my 6th year editing? I don't know. Lots of years editing and fixing the same things over and over again. But I'm also working on my own book. And then I find when I'm writing, I'm making the same mistakes. I'm doing the same thing. So it's just like there's this natural tendency to kind of,
it's contagious.
Yes, it's contagious. I don't know. It just kind of comes out. So we're here as editors saying, hey, here's what we're stumbling upon, but here's how to make the writing better and to improve. And that way, when your manuscript comes to your editor, he or she can take it to the next level.
And that's what you want. Give us your best and we'll give you back a diamond. Give us a first draft and we'll give you back a book with some better punctuation.
It's slightly sounding better.
It'll
make a little bit more sense.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So we've got some examples that Miss Ellen gathered for us from an already published book. We wanted to make sure we weren't picking on our audience this time. We want to just really give you like a general, this is what's happening, and then our opinions and all of that, so that you can then take that into your writing and improve it, which is always the goal, always improving, always learning. And so Ellen's going to screen share the first one.
I just want to preface this with I did choose genre fiction. It may not be your genre, but it is genre fiction. So it's directly comparable to what you guys are writing. Okay. And no, it's not romance. Sorry, Kate.
Yeah. We try to keep it general because we've got so many different genres that it's really just the root of the dialogue. That's where we're at today. The root of the things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not letting me share.
Yeah, today's the day for
it is
technological troubles. I mean, I've lost power in my room and my daughter's room for the past like 2 weeks. The electrician doesn't even know why
I lost
doing
9 years worth of work this morning.
Yeah. So it's a day. It's been a day. It's rain, snowing outside. It's cold. I'm in the dark. You know, what a way to end 2022.
Seriously, it's okay. Here we go.
Walt's here. He says, Leo said he defies you slashing his dialogue tags. And then Leo wants to correct the record. Ellen will so slash my dialogue tags. Everyone knows this. Everyone.
Hey, Walt, why won't it share screens?
Are you clicking? Which one are you clicking?
Well, there's one that says cancel and there's one that says share. The share button isn't highlighted and it won't highlight when I click on it.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. Tell me the first line of the one you want to share. I'll try and share it.
Amuse yourselves for 5 seconds and I'll send them to you in order.
Okay. We're so prepared. We're very prepared. We even tested
I'm so
screen
prepared.
share
I've got
and
files,
everything. This is what we get. Existing in this world.
Leo says, Walt said I need to send Ellen the first draft without a first pass by myself. He said to leave all the mistakes in place. Then Walt said he will miss me. What does it all mean? Yeah.
Please don't do that.
If you send a manuscript into Ellen, make sure it's not just a vomit draft.
Yeah, I've had to, because I have a few authors that when they say, okay, I have my first draft done, I'm ready to send it to you, that they really mean they're on like their 4th or 5th pass through it. But to them, that's still the first draft because it hasn't been sent to the editor yet. Where some people are like, hey, I have my first draft. And it's literally, they just finished vomiting all the words, probably haven't even read through it yet, maybe like once to make sure things are still in order.
Yeah.
Don't send that one.
Right.
Read it through at least once and, clean up some stuff. And
yeah, because your editor can polish that up, but are you even sure you want to keep that action beat there? Or are you even sure you want your character to say that or to do that? If you've just kind of imagined it up on the spot, it might not be ready to go to a professional to polish those words. You might want that out. You might want something else in. So definitely read through it first and maybe even read it out loud to yourself, but fix it up before you send it off to your poor editor.
Yes. Yeah. Because what really ends up happening is instead of like for line edits, instead of focusing on polishing up those lines and, really tightening them up, we end up, deleting 10,000 of the same word over and over. And we end up deleting, I've had duplicate conversations, like from one chapter to another, they've repeated the same conversation. But if you've read through that, you would know, oh, they already talked about the incursion on Death Island. I should probably do something else here. So that's, be aware. Be aware.
Be aware.
Okay. So a week later, is that the first one, Ellen?
No. Yes.
No. Yes?
Yes.
Clicking.
Oh no, what's going on here?
Leah says, and that's just searching how many times I use the word that. His first draft is at least 33% larger before he does his first pass. But then he finds, just searches the word that. He knows it's one of his crutch words. He knows one of his overused words. So he looks, and it's one that you can often take out. And the sentence still makes great sense.
And also as well. If y'all are using as well, she went there as well. He did this thing as well. Stop it with your as wells. It's my new hate word cluster. All right. So in this first example, I'm going to read, and then Ellen will do that thing she does, and we shall discuss. If anyone has questions out there in the live chat land, please don't hesitate to put them out. And if you are hearing our lovely tirade of making this work, you've held on until this point, and you wish you could have said your question that's burning, come join us live. We do these sorts of things all the time. We love the live edits. They're great fun. All right.
We
are you ready? Are you ready, Ellen?
Yes. I'm sending them to you in order.
Okay. Perfect. I shall start reading while you do that.
Yes.
All right. Example number 1. A week later, back in her Chanel suite, she summed up. I trust you will agree, gentlemen, she said, looking out at 6 silver heads in a conference room at the offices of Carlson, Throckmorton, Osgood, Stubbins, and Moncrief, that I have carried out Uncle Harold's wishes and righted not just 1, but 3 wrongs. She sat down and sipped water.
Ooh, I'm getting Kermit the Frog vibes. Like she's just made a mic drop. You know, she's got that tea sip right there.
And okay. I'm done.
So what do you think, readers and editors? How could this be improved? What are we looking at here?
And I also pronounce a word wrong because I'm just first time reading this. It's suit, not sweet.
Ellen, what
Chanel suit.
What? Yes. What is the genre for this piece?
Mystery.
This is mystery, but it's not. Is it supposed to be humorous at all? Like, are we going for a humorous vibe?
Cozy mystery because it doesn't involve cats, but yeah, it's
okay.
It's all light. Right.
Good, because I was chuckling at it, and I hoped that I was meant to chuckle.
Yes.
Good.
Hang on, I gotta count pages. Keep reading. Oh,
that's the end of that one. You gave me oh crap!
In the ordinary course of events, I would probably delete the sipped water, but it works here because, like Laura noticed, she's making a point. So there's a reason for it. It's not dead weight. It's carrying its own load.
Yeah. Can you pop that back up on the screen?
Yeah, no, I was dumb and I closed the window, not realizing it was a window I shared.
So this is an example of one that can be improved or one where the humor is successfully hitting?
Oh, I think they hit, especially because this comes at the end of the book.
Okay,
so yes, I think she nailed it.
So you liked all the details that were included in the middle of the dialogue, because
that's a really hard action beat. But each of these characters has a personality, and they're all going to make an appearance.
Okay,
in this scene.
All right.
And I want to add, so there's these 3 little dots at the top of this little passage. So this is an opening of a new scene, which is really important to what I'm about to say. Yeah. The very first line, a week later, back in her Chanel suit, she summed up. That's it. That is all we get. We don't get, the office or who was to her right or who was to her left. We don't have that she stood up from her seat and none of that. It's just week later. That's Chanel's suit. So she's looking fly. And she summed up some things for them. And then we get right into it.
She wasn't compelled to repeat the entire story, and she didn't have to thrust her arm this way and bat her eyes in that direction and do all those other things. No stage direction.
She didn't gaze or look around the room or take in each person. Just from that, we can automatically see this powerhouse of a woman. She's telling some things, and they're going to listen, without having to have that added, looked around, made sure, stared, all that delightful stuff.
Yeah, and if the genre was something more serious, like military science fiction, I might try to make the wording more tight and even kind of trim back on the details. But the ones that we have here, I think, are hilarious. Like that we're pointing to her Chanel suit, that the narrator, that the POV character would comment on that. I think it's adorable. And also in the middle of her sentence, when she's speaking, she says, looking out at 6 silver heads in a conference room at the offices of Carlson, Throckmorton, Osgood, Stubbins, and Moncrief. Like that's a huge interruption right in the middle of her sentence, but it works here. I find it, pretty tongue-in-cheek, kind of hilarious little moment. But it is something that in a different genre, I might have trimmed back. But here it's working so well. So I love it.
Yeah, and that 6 silver heads looking out at 6 silver heads. It's using the words in a different way to say she looked out at the 6 men sitting around the conference room table, staring back at all of that's gone. It's just 6 silver heads. We automatically see the stuff that's going on, because it's also ingratiated in everything else you've done to build up the voice of the story and the voice of your authoring. So,
right. Yeah. Then when you get to that really short sentence, she sat down and sipped water, you get the humor of the moment, right? It's a nice short sentence with just like one little moment, the sipping of the water. It's that little sarcastic little move that she makes.
I like Scott McGlasson's comment in the chat. A week later, she traded the camo and flak vest for a Chanel suit. Like, yeah, you're right there. You just made it. You put it in a different genre. So there you go.
Or maybe not. Okay, go on.
Okay, so what did we? Okay, next. I fumbled over my mouth, wondering if that was the last that you wanted to save that one, Mr. Montkeef.
And why don't you read through the end of the scene, and then we'll talk about it. You'll know when you get to the end of the scene. Just
present share screen. Go to my window. There we go. All right. You want me to read the whole thing?
Yeah. Can you make it bigger?
Perchance. That's all. That's about it. That's all I can do. It's full screen. All right. Mr. Montcrief frowned. 3 wrongs. I arranged for Linda Donnelly's daughter to receive funds enabling her to study piano, for which she shows great promise. Judge Potter frowned. Yes, but you tell us the party from whom she received the funds never had them in the first place. That is, this individual. He consulted some notes through his glasses. Mr. Wayne never did benefit initially from Linda Donnelly's gullibility. That's true, said Jane. But he did feel a moral obligation. She squirmed a little. Why did he come up with the money? Said Glendenning, the banker.
Glendenning, yeah.
Sounds like you had something on him, said Commander Kincaid with a chuckle. Let's not be so picky, Potter. The bastard would have conned the girl's mother out of that money if he could have. Let's avoid sloppy thinking here, said Professor Grunwald. Blackmail, said the bishop, shaking his head. I don't know if we can reward blackmail. It wasn't exactly blackmail, said Jane. We'll have to think about it, said Judge Potter. How about those other wrongs? Now, let's see. There's the initial death of Linda Donnelly. That strikes me as rather vague. Is anyone going to be prosecuted for that? Does anyone know what really happened? As I explained, said Jane patiently, Mrs. Hawthorne has chosen to testify against her husband in the murder of Richard English. She has been frank about the original conspiracy. She says Linda fell into the water at the end of the pier where Richard English kept his studio during a ceremony. End scene.
That's not the end of the scene.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Let me...
More pages, so...
There's more pages. Hang on. I know, we're doing great at this. I'm skipping between.
Ellen, what is this excerpt from?
It's from a book called A Hopeless Case by K.K. Beck. Ooh. She wrote a whole series of... She actually wrote a couple of series, but this particular series features Jane De Silva, who is the widow of a Formula One race car driver. So,
I really like titles that are puns.
Yes.
Punny titles.
Oh, the Body and the Cornflakes, The Body and the Volvo. Those are a different series, though. Okay. A ceremony during which she handed
over her inheritance to Mrs. Hawthorne, then Dr. Hawthorne's mistress. Dr. Hawthorne had been hiding in a back room. His wife says he dissuaded her from trying to save the girl. I think she was pushed, but either way, it's murder. How could Linda Donnelly have been so stupid? Mused Glenn. I hate this guy, Glenn. I'm calling him Glenn.
Okay.
Mused Glenn. Tammy, or Robin, says they cooked up in an elaborate ritual. They'd bring Linda to English's studio and show her light shows full of her dreams and innermost thoughts. Robin would pretend to trance and tie it all together with promises that Linda would be a princess of the cosmos. It sounds amazing, but people have believed crazier things. And remember, the Hawthorns did know her innermost secrets. The prosecutor, as I understand it, is not going to press charges in that case. But I think we can agree that Linda was the victim of a wrongful death, and she certainly didn't kill herself. This information relieves her daughter and her widower of that burden. It also exposes a conspiracy. Well, said Montcrief, what about this conspiracy? Shouldn't the psychiatrist give Leonora her mother's money? Jane shrugged. Everything he owns could well be swallowed up by legal fees, and I doubt he'd want to give her anything. It would look incriminating. Anyway, she said, Dr. Hawthorne will stand trial for the murder of Richard English. The police tell me that with his wife's testimony, as well as certain physical evidence, a conviction is likely. So while I open up the next one, what through that part of what I've just read in like the tags, how it's all flowing together, are you seeing?
What I would like other people to see is that was a continuous 2 pages of dialogue with no action, no anything else. It was telling the story, and it was doing it without stupid action beats. And nobody was scratching, nobody was stretching, nobody was gazing out a window, nobody was standing, turning, facing, leaning, sitting, or any of those other pausing unpleasant things. You can write dialogue and drive a story, and have dialogue help drive the story. It should be, but it's got to be clean, and it's got to, like, this works. It's banter almost, except for it's not. But you can see in your head that Jane is wilting, under this onslaught of, well, what about this? What 3 wrongs? Wait, well, but the guy who did it isn't the one giving her the money. Blah 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 blah. They're questioning her, and she's fighting a really good action. I mean, you can see all these things.
Yeah. And as an editor, when you have multiple, or editor or author, when you have multiple characters on the scene, it's hard to give them all unique voices and to keep them separate and to indicate to the reader who's speaking without those indications becoming redundant.
Or stupid.
Or stupid, or kind of like repeating the same words over and over again. As an editor, we try to take out dialogue tags as much as possible. Just because if it's not needed, you take it out and then you can kind of go through it. But there comes a point where you need it to be clear, and we need to understand who's talking and saying what.
No, there are 6 people in this scene.
Yeah, so that's a lot.
If you had them slapping and bending and hurling books or whatever,
right,
it would just get out of hand completely. You can write clean dialogue without it getting out of hand by leaving out the extraneous stage direction, which is what action beats are, stage direction. And don't use too much, don't abuse it. Make it effective. Like when Jane sat down and drank water.
Right.
It was effective right there.
Yeah, but that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the scene. So you've made that statement, you've got the tone set, and now you can move on to the actual dialogue.
And it wouldn't have made any kind of a statement at all if she had been rising and shuffling her papers and, looking out the window and swallowing and bracing herself. If she'd been doing all those things, and the fact that she sat down and took a sip of water wouldn't punctuate anything.
Right. It would get lost. Yeah. I like that.
And another thing I want to add, aside from like the tags and stuff that we're talking about, is what's within the dialogue that is going on. There's not a lot of repetition. There's not a lot of, it's harder to explain, but it's when you really need the reader to know something. So, and it's easier for it to be in dialogue. So you tell them through the dialogue, but you have to hide it a little bit. You can't just be like,
people don't just stand up and orate. There has to be a reason for them to talk.
Right. Well, sometimes you have the narrator make a point, and then you have the character make the same point. Like the narrator,
and that would be repetitive.
Right. The narrator might comment that a character asked a question, and then the next line is the character asking a question, for example. So that could be something where, like in your first draft, you get it out because you need to say it. It's on your creative mind, so you just get it out. But then when you revise it, that's something that you will want to take out. If the narrator makes that comment, you don't need to have the character make the same comment in the next line. Or you better yet, just take out that line from what the narrator said and let the character speak for themselves.
Yeah. And the thing that you want to remember about all this is that when you're doing these stage direction, action beat kind of things to spice up your dialogue, the cumulative effect of repetition of everybody turning and everybody looking and everybody standing and everybody sitting and everybody sneezing and what everybody, because you'll find that you do it habitually. You're just bing, 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 bing. He looked, she looked, they looked, we're on a roll. Let's look. They looked, she looked, let's go.
And nods. Oh my goodness. People be nodding, could make my head hurt. It's like, and they use it as a tag. Okay. A lot of you are using it as a replacement for said. So I am speaking to Ellen. She nodded. Like, why? Why am I nodding? Why am I nodding at the end of that dialogue? There's no reason for me to be nodding. She said,
why are you reporting that I nodded? I mean, if I am not in agreement, I will
not even you nodding. The person speaking is the one who nodded. Instead, like the nod. Anyway, it's just I've been seeing it crop up a lot more, and I had to get it off my chest. Nod for said.
Right. Yeah. And if you don't intentionally take it out of your writing, you'll never move on to new and better habits of including different things that are maybe more humorous or maybe have more emotion or maybe that tell the story better. But you're kind of holding yourself back by sticking to all these useless action beats.
Training wheels.
You gotta let them go so you can really fly.
And we are coming up to about the halfway mark. Normally we have a little bit of a spotlight right here or a show sponsor, but I really wanted to remind everybody out there in the internet's land that Keystroke Medium, the group on Facebook, we're still live, we're still kicking, we're still there. So if you are confused about any of this or you're unsure or you want to just be like, hey, this conversation back and forth that I'm having with my characters, what do you think? You can always make a post in the Facebook group. We are more than happy to help, and there's lots of people out there who want to help you improve your writing, because that's what Keystroke Medium is all about: improving our writing, improving
and don't be afraid to tag us if you want our advice specifically, because sometimes we don't see things.
Yeah. But putting a post in the group, our audience has written, like, some of them have written a lot, giant series. We were just talking to Rick Partlow the other day, and he's written like 58 novels. Yeah, if you put a post in and Rick Partlow can answer it about your author question, you're getting someone who's a real veteran in writing and in publishing and in marketing.
Who quit his job and moved to Yellowstone.
Yeah, your friends in the group might have the information that you need and the connection that you might need, and someone that you can also share your expertise with, share your thoughts, your opinions with, and get that kind of support and camaraderie.
And John Keyports in the chat has a question. What are good dialogue tags that aren't action oriented?
Well, there are two schools of thought on dialogue tags, one for traditional tags, one for non-traditional tags. I don't care which one you use. You can use either traditional or non-traditional. But the point is, start losing some of the tags. Shed the tags a little bit. Let your dialogue carry itself. People don't speak in one sentence. For example, me. I'm running on at the mouth endlessly right now without stopping. People do that. I mean, they say more than one sentence without stopping and saluting or whatever tag you're going to use. So the goal should be fewer tags, not better tags.
We could look at the next page and try to spot some. But hi, John. John is one of my former students from when I taught English back in the day.
Yay.
Yeah, I know.
Well, welcome to the writer's journey. Did you want to switch to the other file, Ellen, since we're at the halfway mark? No.
I'd rather go all the way through with this, and then I'll send you the send you the comparison so you can show what they look like. Or we can.
Leo has his own tag. Rick, being bored, move next door to Earth's largest caldera volcano.
It's more of an action beat.
Yes.
All right, so this next one. The trustees were silent for a moment. Why is his wife testifying? Said Judge Potter. As I understand it, said Jane, she was terrified of going to jail. She made a deal with the prosecutor. But, said Glenn, Richard English wouldn't have died if you hadn't begun your investigation. What was based on this spurious assumption was that these flame people got Linda's money. If you righted any wrongs, it was accidentally. They sat there in silence for a moment. I just have to really quickly. I hate the for a moment.
Me too. I was thinking the same thing.
I'm like, I'm going to give it to you.
Favorite things, but what just happened was she just got shot down, and they're sitting there, and everybody's what to do about it.
Yeah,
it's good.
If it wasn't so hackneyed, you wouldn't hate it because you didn't used to hate it. You only hate it now because you see it every 5 seconds.
Right.
Yeah, she had one at the top of the page and then not even halfway down. Anyway, continue. They sat there in silence for a moment. Jane didn't feel she could add much more. I believe, she said firmly, that Uncle Harold would have approved of the results of my endeavors. We'll need to discuss this further. Gentlemen, said Mr. Montecrief, Harold's work was always more cut and dried. Mrs. De Silva seems to have cut rather a wide swath. I did my best, and I did it in the spirit in which Uncle Harold intended, she insisted. What about publicity? Said the bishop. Is there going to be any publicity? I have made every attempt to keep my role anonymous, said Jane. The scholarship to Lenora was announced without any reference to me. I may have to appear in the Hawthorne trial, but only as a concerned friend of Lenora. No cheap publicity, said the bishop. You don't want to be some odious local celebrity, do you? Absolutely not, said Jane. I want to lead a quiet life, doing Uncle Harold's work. And spending Uncle Harold's money, she added to herself. In quiet good taste. Mr. Montecrief shook his head. I don't know, he said. We'll have to discuss this among ourselves.
All right, so looking at that, for the most part, those action beats are just, or those dialogue tags are just clarifying who's speaking. We do have a little more description about what people are doing here and there when there is a pause as the characters contemplate that. We do need to include that to show that the characters are thinking through that revelation. I think in the second for a moment, maybe we could have cut that one because it's already implied that Jane's thinking things through. However, there does need to be some kind of a pause.
Yeah, I would cut the first one though.
Yeah.
Just one. Just cut one. That's all I ask. I don't cut them all, but they don't need to be doubled up.
Just one. Just one.
Just one. I just asked just one. Just cut one. Okay.
Essentially, if it's not needed, cut it. That should be your guiding star.
Yeah. Kayleen, you wanted to move on to...
Did you want to move on to the next file?
No. Yeah.
Or do you want me to do the next screen, end the scene?
Yeah, end the scene.
Okay. All right. So this is just a little blip. It goes into another scene, but I'm just going to read that first top part. This has some twists and turns that are a trifle unorthodox. Before I leave, said Jane, I'd like to add that I was badly beaten during the course of this work. It wasn't pleasant or easy. I was frightened and tired, and sometimes what I learned made me very sad. But whatever you decide, I'll know I did what my uncle wanted me to, and more, and that I'd do it again. End scene. I love it when it just ends on dialogue, because, like,
it's clean.
We don't need the extra. She turned and left the room, leaving them alone with their thoughts.
Shutting the door behind her.
With a firm click.
Yeah. Or worse, the witty entendre at the end.
Do you have an example for that one?
Yeah, now I'm curious. I'm like, ooh.
Oh, when they end the scene with especially, and you see it more in first person, I think, when they end a scene with, and did she ever, or whatever, to the, something like that, you know? When for a comment, an opinion on.
I hear you. All right. So Ellen has prepared another thing that I don't see unless I don't have.
I sent it. It should be in the, and it's a Word file. I didn't. Pretty sure I sent it. I'll send it again.
No, I see it. I see a couple comments from you. Was that all that was really on there? Were the comments?
I sent you a clean one. Don't read the comments.
Okay.
I mean, I marked up another. I marked up other sets. I marked up both of them for different things so that we could do a side by side. But because of this,
okay. So I have it starting at thanks for the jacket.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
It's a Word file.
Yeah, it's a Word file. Do you want me to share that, or do you want me to just read from it and then you can
share? That's fine.
Share it.
Yeah, for visual learners like me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lauren. Yes, by all means.
All right, it's clean. Let me make this bigger. Boom.
Hey, Tyler.
Fill that void. Okay. William Tyler Davis says, I like to end scenes with, and little did she know she'd be dead in an hour.
Yeah, but that's fine. That's different. That's not. That's what she said. Ha ha ha. You know. Sorry. Carry on, Kay.
All right. So this is completely different story, right?
These are from my client files. Yes.
Okay. Ooh. Spicy.
4 stories. It's 4 different things because I could not find anybody who was capable of or had ever attempted or managed to write 11 consecutive pages of dialogue.
Well, there you go. All right. So on this first bit, just tell me when to stop. I'll just keep
You'll know when to stop.
All right. Thanks for the jacket. She handed him his tailcoat. Bar's in the back. Mind if we start there? Instead of answering, he nodded to the host and pointed in the direction of the carved wood bar. A fresh-faced barmaid with ghoulish silver and black skull rings on every finger clicked out Dean Martin's That's Amore on a blender of margaritas. So what can I get you? Annalise glanced at Alec, and when he didn't reply, she said, I'll have a Manhattan. Dirty martini, Williams Chase, shaken for me. Extra olive? Alex nodded at the barmaid, then turned to Annalise. A whiskey girl. I missed that one. What about you, dirty martini? I like dirty things. His eyes locked on the bar, then shifted her direction. Annalise was about to spear him with her sharp tongue, but she didn't trust herself with a coherent joke. Is it a blast freezer in here? She seesawed her hands over her arms. He scooted his stool closer. On a deep breath, she allowed woodsy Alec to what?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Okay, people, we're in it. All right, let's just hunker down. I'm gonna try and do this with a straight face.
Yeah.
On a deep breath, she allowed woodsy Alec to explode beneath her nose, but his nearness rattled her. Palpable rejection threatened her thoughts of intimacy with him. A wall of hesitancy stood in the way with the faces of his past relationships plastered to each brick. She wouldn't be his next conquest. The barmaid returned with her drinks, her smile aimed at Alec. Multicolored beams from her rings shot into their glasses from the huge liquor display on the wall. Could we get an anti-pesto tray, please? Hopefully I said that right. Tray, please, Alec asked as the barmaid stole a longer look at him. I never made it upstairs. Did you grab... Chase removed the necklace. I'm just going to say, if anyone else is confused, I am too. Don't worry. He moved one finger temptingly down the side of his face and slid closer. Let's talk about you. Grasping the highball glass, she sipped her drink, trying to ignore his thigh touching hers. But your mom still has it. Tell me how the necklace landed in Gen's lap. It could be important. Mom asked me to bring it for the opening, that's all. She asked, so I brought it. The coolness from the ice numbed her fingers. Jen doesn't get it. She cringed inwardly, as we all are. Squeezing the glass to the point, she left prints. Neither do you. Sam and Harry are dead. 2 deaths in the last 6 weeks. Mom mentioned your friend. Okay, I have a question. Are they related? Because they had a moment. Now they're talking about Mom. Sorry. Mom mentioned your friend. I'm sorry for your loss, but Harry choked. I doubt they're related. The horses, that's why. Are these? Is this all one scene?
Yes, I promise.
God, okay. The horses. That's why I begged Sam to get rid of her bracelet. Those pieces were meant to stay in Iran, worn only by Iranian royalty. I'm not sure yet how Harry figures into this. I don't believe in coincidences, but I do believe in this curse. She folded her napkin and slowed her breaths. I'm sorry. Okay. Alec's stubbornness came straight from his mother. A humming sound came from the back of his throat. You and Sam were close? Tight, the three of us, me, Chase, and Sam. Since grammar school, she and I roomed together at NYU. Are you going to take over the galley for Harry? Hardly. She cupped her glass with both hands as Peter zoomed through her mind, his balding head and grim image. I'll have to make do and live off ramen for a while. He'll probably demote me. She circled the rim of her glass with a finger. Tell me something I don't know about you. Do I have to keep going?
Almost over.
Okay. He paused for a moment. I like speed. Fast cars, fast airplanes, fast thoroughbreds, maybe even a few fast women. He cleared his throat and dropped his gaze to the bar, as if he let information slip he shouldn't have.
All right.
I'm sorry, whoever wrote this. I'm sorry. I apologize deeply. Okay.
So you can see how too many action beats and trying to be original with your action beats so that you sound fresh and new can really make you sound like an idiot.
It's just confusing. Like I'm trying to follow it and understand what's going on in the dialogue, and there's so much going on. I'm trying to like pick up the pieces. It's like I've got like ping pong balls and I'm trying to collect them all and they're spilling out and I can't follow it very well.
Oiled ping pong balls.
Yeah, oiled ones.
I mean, it starts off like, okay, they're getting drinks. We're going to start to figure out why they're meeting. And then all of a sudden,
it's all about,
I don't know, there's a curse, there's horses, they're flirting with each other. They might be related. I don't know.
Got some more on a blender, you know.
Very eye-catching bar. Catching his attention. This bar.
He loves that bar.
And the girl with the skull rings, flashing lasers into the lights behind. I mean, there's so much going on in here, you can't even tell what they're talking about or follow or even connect the answer to the question.
But you can see that if you just start like cutting some things out and just trimming here and there, that there is a great scene here. There is the plot moving forward. We've got different character voices. So there's a lot of material here. You just got to kind of pull out the weeds to get to it.
Right. Exactly. Peel back the crap. I mean, peel back the action beats. Peel back the stage direction. Peel back seesawing her hands over her arms because I don't even know what that means.
Is it this? Yeah, I was going to say is like this sort of.
I never got that from that.
I would just be like, she rubbed her arms or something. Like if you have to, like make it less weird.
But go ahead. You can see how like that makes sense to the author. It's in their imagination, so they get the words out. But it would take an outside pair of eyes to say, "Hey, I have no idea what's going on right here."
Yeah, you're painting an odd sense of imagery. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're going for. Did you want me to show the comments that you left?
No, those are old news.
Okay. And have we said what we needed to say for?
Yeah, well, I think the comparison, and if we,
definitely compared to the first round of snippets that I was reading through, the scene with the legal going on. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of hard, like none of the action beats of his balding head and grim image, and paused for a moment and cleared his throat and seesawing arms and all this stuff.
Cupping her glass.
They didn't have any of that, so we were able to better follow along with this deep information that they're talking about. Whereas with this one, it's like they're trying to do too much all at the same time.
Right. And we have half the number of characters too.
Yeah.
And it's twice as confusing just because we need to cut some stuff out.
Yes.
So that last sample that we read that had been edited, right, by TradPub, that was published by TradPub. Okay, so that had been edited. This is pre-editing?
No, I took that, I screen grabbed that right out of the book.
Okay.
Mysterious Press, May 15th, 2001. And Mysterious Press was owned by Random House.
Oh, this one was edited too?
No.
Oh.
The first one.
The first one was edited, but we're comparing it to, this is a manuscript that still needs editing?
Yes, and that's a fair comparison. However, I don't think that one started here.
Right. Yeah, but we can say there's like a, that one was, post editing. This one, we still need to do some of that trimming out. And we can get it to a place where it will make more sense just by taking some of these extra details out.
Yes, so you can see that these things are not adding to the scene. I mean, Kayleen couldn't read all the way through it without rolling her eyes or laughing or dropping her mic or asking me if she had to go on.
Okay. So like, I'm really good at just speed reading through something and understanding it. But once it was going somewhere, like it was still rough, but it was going somewhere. And then all of a sudden they're like romantically entwined, but then there's horses and some kind of curse, and there's jewelry and there's mom. Apparently they're related, and so I just want to add to all of this. When you are writing your dialogue, really think about what you want that dialogue to tell the reader. Like, what are you focusing on in this stream of consciousness that the characters are bouncing back and forth on? Before you hops, because they're hopscotching through topics. So, that might work in reality where you're sitting with your friend and you're talking about something and they skip to a different topic, but then you go back to the other topic. But in reading, you got to stick to the same road before hopscotching. And if you do, really do it on purpose so that we don't end up with this. It's very confusing.
Yeah, no. Keep in mind that even though you can see all this in your head, the low light and the skeevy bartender with the skull rings, and you can see all this in your head, but you don't need it to set the scene. I mean, set the scene as quickly and with as little fanfare as you need to, unless it's a space battle or something. But like Lauren pointed out in the first one, she sat down and took a sip of water. That boom, you knew what was going on. That she just gave her story and dropped the mic. You knew there was no, I like speed, fast car. He didn't clear his throat. There was no glass squeezing. There was none of this stuff.
Right.
Everybody sees your story in their head, their own way. Just give them enough to make a coherent story. Don't tell them about the beaded curtain and the Coors Light and the, chips in the bar.
Right.
They can feel that in themselves.
Writing the first draft is for you. That's for you taking your imagination, taking what's up there in your head and getting it out on paper. But then when you're done writing, now you need to revise it. That stage is for the reader. That stage is to make what you've imagined make sense to them in their imagination, because they haven't seen the characters you've seen. They haven't seen the setting that you've seen. So now it has to make sense to them. That's why we editors were saying, please, please, please revise your draft before you give it to someone else, right? So that they can actually know what you're trying to say.
And I know this sucks, and I know that you're going to hate what I'm about to say, but you really, really need to put it away for a week or two, at least, before you come back to revise it. I'm sorry, but there it is. You want it to be good, right? I mean, that's
like even a couple days. Like if you give yourself like a weekend where you put it away, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday you don't touch it, at least that 3 days where you're away from it will give you some sort of distance. So when you come back to it, it's not all still here right in front of you, where you know what it's supposed to say and it's supposed to describe. You can cut that a little bit so that when you reread it, you're like, oh, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Must rewrite.
So you're in that second stage of the process where you're approaching it as a reader, not as the writer who's already seen it all.
Yes, exactly.
Scott says, let it simmer.
Yes.
Let it marinate.
Marinate.
All right. And the next one. Smell the testosterone, ladies, exclaimed Melanie to Sarah and Hoster as the three of them lounged in the cruiser, view cams in hand to monitor the boys' progress. Who's your money on, Sarah? I'm hoping for Max, but my money's on Trent, Sarah replied. Now there's a surprise. Earth bro is out of the game for a future boyfriend. Melanie couldn't help but stir things up with every opportunity she could get. For so many years, Sarah had ribbed Max and her. Time for payback. And Bedrang, is he not in the running? Bedrang will trail the other two in, said Hoster emotionlessly, if I could read. He lacks the competitiveness of the others, having little thought of winning. The completing is more important than the competing to him, and the thought processes required to negotiate the course at speed will be forward in his mind. Hoster was aware of the questioning looks from Sarah and Melanie regarding her comment, and clarified further. It was a consequence of our regression back from near ascendancy 10,000 years ago. The few of my race not consumed by the Zerot needed to reassert themselves back to a completely physical form. At the time, the Remorians could coexist in a spiritual state, but without the common collective. That was no longer possible. They were even more confused now. What I'm trying to say, and what you are failing to understand, is we are nearly ascended beings in an older body form. We do not have the needs you have in the varying stages of evolution you find yourselves in. I understand that, said Sarah defiantly. Don't we, Melanie? Yes, been there. Got the t-shirt, replied Melanie, muddying the waters. Hoster's blank expression suggested confusion, or she was accessing the translator's database. Whatever, she replied, putting her hands in the air and, for Hoster, almost smirking at her witty response. Sarah and Melanie burst out laughing. Touché, said Sarah. There's hope for you yet, Hoster, laughed Melanie, leaning towards her and putting an arm around her. You may have a sense of humor that hasn't fully ascended. So how old are you then? Sarah asked. For someone almost ascended, will you outgrow your older body form? Hoster paused, the merest moment of apprehension caught by Sarah, but missed by Melanie. Do you need to change bodies, like the baddies of on Stargate? Melanie asked, her mind racing ahead of herself. We may be future hosts. Would you change that body for you or me? Said Sarah, stopping Melanie before she got too carried away. So, Hoster, how does it work? I was a small girl when we awoke on the Liorgo. That was 9,000 years ago. 9,030, to be exact. 1,000 years spent in stasis does not doffen. I was 6 years old, so that makes me 9,036. You are safe for a while yet, Melanie. Sarah and Melanie stared at each other, mouths wide open. Wow, said Melanie. Sarah felt the need to change the subject back to the boys. She didn't need the view cam now, as they weren't far away. All three are even. I wouldn't want to call this one. Blimey, birthdays must get really boring, stated Melanie. Amanda, hissed Sarah through clenched teeth. The boys? Oh, okay, replied Melanie disappointedly. They all watched the three protagonists making painstakingly slow progress now, jumping from rock to rock. I think I might have a go. Looks fun, Sarah stated right out of the blue. Since when did you learn to ride a bike? Asked Melanie, now half focusing on Sarah, wondering if she was serious. Since every weekend while I was on Earth, replied Sarah guiltily, with Harry. What? Exclaimed Melanie. You're kidding. Does Max know this? Well, replied Sarah sheepishly. He never really asked, and you know how secretive they treated my training. So was this pilot training? Only partly. I used to ride at night without lights, then later blindfolded. It was part of my mental training. I would see the route as a series of data packages, part of the training for the Quantum Quinary Psychic Vision program. Whatever, Melanie said, not understanding a word Sarah had said, then smiling at her repeat of Hoster's witticism. What else have you kept from us in all these years? Bike riding and a secret love affair? Melanie stopped, the penny now dropping. This is so you can cycle with Trent, am I correct? You are correct, interjected Hoster. How better to impress your future boyfriend than show an interest in his interests? Not show an interest, smiled Sarah, not fazed in the slightest by the other two. Kick his ass. I need to get noticed. Melanie was struggling with his entire conversation. But one point niggled her. Niggled. Sorry. How can you be better? He's a top pilot with advanced mental capabilities. Like you? You are perfectly correct, Melanie, but are missing one vital element. Sarah's smile was gentle and showed only a fraction of humility. The Schumberli have upgraded me. Trent walked past the library door and saw Sarah's... How are they? I thought they were in a car. Anyway, still with her nose in the same book. He'd noticed her earlier, but decided not to disturb. She had now had long enough. What are you reading, High Elder? Cycling for Beginners? I've told you not to call me that, she replied without looking up. Anyway, you should be the High Elder now. You can take over any time you like. She finally looked up, giving him a brief and unconvincing smile. So, what are you reading? Trent pressed. It's a book about the afterlife. And you believe in that stuff? Of course I don't, she replied stiffly. It's just a book. It's interesting, though. Tell me, Trent said. It's difficult to explain, Sarah continued, trying to keep annoyed at him for disturbing her. From what Melanie has told me, you have just overseen the reunification of Primala. Trent was enjoying himself now. So what's so difficult about explaining this? He pointed to the book in her hands. He was realizing why he had made her life an enjoyable misery when she was a little girl. He knew all the right buttons to press. But, he reminded himself, this wasn't a little girl anymore. Well, it is about the realms that supposedly share our own. According to this book by Bambin Settlemount, our realm is one of 3. Of the other 2, one of them is a safe place, and the other isn't. Trent felt her looking hard at him, expecting some ridicule, but he held back. The safe zone he refers to, the P zone, seems much like the penumbra? Anyway, realm the Dolphin and Prince Ledro used during the war, saving so many lives. The Dolphin? Trent was on this like a shot, especially after seeing Sarah's momentary lapse when realizing her blunder. She didn't answer. The Dolphin? He pressed. Can you keep a secret? Of course I can. Well, there is a 4th member of our party, hiding in the teardrop. He will announce himself at the ball tonight. Why is he hiding? Asked Trent, now genuinely interested. Because he is a Belfino, Sarah replied. Do you mean Bellafina? No, the Bellafina are the females. The Belfino are the males. They separated from each other before our planet even existed. But I've heard the Dolphinus talk about their long-forgotten males, with some venom, I must add. She called them pathetic. Trent was staring deep into Sarah's eyes now. She had lovely eyes. We have one on our planet, Campo, funny and pathetic, but becoming quite adored by those around him. She looked back at him strangely. No Dolphin Bodon, I hope I'm pronouncing these right, is a fully functioning Belfino, as they once were. They called him the Misfit on their planet. He's nearly the size of Dolphinus Boar. Trent kept quiet, so Sarah continued. He's been secretly talking with Lady Mitolanda and thinks that by entering during the ball tonight, the Dolphinus might deem it inappropriate to kill him there on the spot. Oh dear, replied Trent. Tonight could be fun. And what is this Penumbra realm? Tomorrow. It can be the first job for the Dolphin, providing he's still alive to explain it to you. I haven't enough time. I need to find out what the A zone is, the not-so-nice zone.
Stop.
Yeah.
Okay, because you actually ran 2 scenes there. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was confused. I was like, wait, what? This, like, shifted suddenly.
Okay.
You want to go back up to the top?
No. I just want to point out that you can make statistics out of some of the differences between these 2 manuscripts. And to cover everything that we talked about today, I mean, the high points being, okay, in 11 pages.
That was 11 pages.
Well, we didn't finish the 11. We didn't finish either.
Page 8.
So you actually did more. But in the total 11-page sample submitted, and they were both 11 pages, the first one had 28 action beats. The second one had 46.
Wow.
The difference?
Yeah.
How much sense that makes, all that clutter?
Yeah.
Yeah, and through all this, like we're building a scene in our head. So we keep getting stopped to be reminded that they're looking, that other bits that have nothing really to do with what they're talking about. It's just, oh, by the way, he's looking at her, loves her eyes, which might not necessarily be a bad thing, but since there's so many that come before it, it kind of loses its punch that, oh, he kind of likes her. So for example,
some of you refer to my list of overused words. That's free to everybody in the group files if you just want to go get it. But it's a list of commonly overused words, and in these two samples, the first one used 15 or 15 usages of overused words, but 10 of them were in dialogue, so they had 5 overused words in that whole thing. And in the second one, there were 44 overused words, 6 of which were in dialogue, so they had 38 overused words.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So
that's the feeling in the eyes and the
Ellen, you read this whole manuscript, right? This is from something you've read. Okay. So was all of this information needed for the story? Like all the information in the dialogue, did we need to know it for the story to get what was happening?
Information in the dialogue?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The information in the dialogue was important. The information in the action beats was not.
Could this scene have been shorter? You said it was 8 pages long. Well, to me, it felt like a slog just to kind of listen to it.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if it could be closer to 5 pages.
Well, it was actually
their way.
Kayleen just actually read 2 chunks, 2 different scenes. Remember, I told you I had to stitch together 4 things. So we like changed the track in the middle, and the fact that nobody noticed that we were like all of a sudden reading a totally different book.
No, I did. I was like, wait a minute. I thought she was in a car. What? See, but that's exactly what you're saying. Is
there's so much going on. It's just like it's a chore to listen to it, and it's a chore to read it.
Right.
And you miss things, important things, like it's not the same book.
There's some of that dialogue that might not have been needed, so you can trim it out. And there's some of that dialogue that we can convey to the reader with the narrator just making the point and then skipping that part of the conversation and moving on to what's really important. They say show don't tell, but sometimes storytelling can save the reader a lot of time for like sections of the dialogue that aren't really needed to have a play-by-play of each line of the dialogue.
It's about
that's where the narrator, your narrative voice really comes into play. Does this really need to be spoken? Like this whole, I don't know, there's this bit, I guess.
Show don't tell is designed to get you to stop filtering, which is the she watched, she thought, she felt, she heard, all of that stuff is what they're trying to get you to leave behind you, grow out of it, be a better writer.
And Leo does have a question about overused words in dialogue, since we mentioned that. What if it's how the character speaks?
Overused words aren't overused words in dialogue because people speak the way people speak. What I'm telling you is you can't be watching. I mean, if somebody says, look, this is the way it is, that's different from somebody looking out a window, or he looked at her, she looked at him, they looked at each other, they looked at the sky, they looked at the stars, they danced a little dance, they looked at,
Dialogue takes on a completely different beat.
Look, dummy, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. It's not the same as it's an entirely different ball game. I just said all that. I don't need to beat it to death.
One example that I can think of off the top of my head, because he's one of my favorite characters, is Scott Moon. For those who don't know his last name, I forget the character's name, but he always said muchly.
Yeah.
And
Dark Landing.
This is great. I muchly, like everything was muchly. Like I don't think there was a single dialogue. It was very rare that he didn't say muchly, but it wasn't overused because that's what he says. That's like his little catchphrase. It's his thing. So you do have a little bit. There's definitely more wiggle room in dialogue, but how you surround your dialogue. How you're essentially, think of your dialogue as a painting, right? How are you going to present this painting? Do you want to put it and surround it in like 20 frames? It's just this giant conglomeration of frames, you know, or do you just want to just like give it to us? One little frame, she said. You know,
right.
Yeah. Oh, and that was the last point I wanted to make. As far as dialogue tags went, the first book had 73 dialogue tags, and the second had 51. People are replacing their dialogue tags with action beats. And the first one, in my opinion, did not feel like it was overburdened with dialogue tags at all.
In that one, it was easier to kind of remember who was speaking with the 6 different characters going on, because you had just a quick Jen said, Mariachi said, I don't remember their names, but Glenn said, you know, instead of Glenn pushed his glasses halfway up his face and looked at Jen.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need it. We don't need all that.
Yeah. And if you have 2 characters that are going back and forth, you can cut a lot of those dialogue tags. And also, if you have characters that have very unique voices, you know, Leo mentioned characters that use particular words or have you could have short sentences or long sentences, like a different way of speaking, then sometimes you can get away with leaving off dialogue tags if it makes sense to the reader. Oh, that's so-and-so because he talks like a cowboy. You know, someone else has a Brooklyn accent, and it can be really clear just like that.
And with that,
frame it nicely, and it will drive your story for you. Leave out all the crap.
And again, if any of you are just like, I have this, you know, half a page of dialogue and I don't really know, am I overusing? Where is the action beat? What's the difference? Post it in the Facebook group, Keystroke Medium. And, you know, me, Lauren up here, Ellen, we're all in there. There's also Scott, there's Josh, there's Walt, there's Rick, there's Nick, there's all the people. We're in there. There's Patricia. Patricia's up in there. Leo's up in there. Scott McGlasson's up in there. And yeah, we can help you out. That's what we're here for. With that, thank you everybody in the chat for joining us on this exploration of dialogue and the tags which surround them and the action beats that are not very actiony. You're just beating the dialogue over its own head.
Emphasis on the beats.
Yes, they're just at this point they're just beats, and they're just fluffy, fatty beats, most of which we don't even need. And thank you so much, Ellen, for coming on and sharing your expertise as always. We love it.
You're most welcome. Anytime.
And definitely check out No Safe Words. It's a little, I don't know if y'all have heard of it. It's a little editing company Ellen's got going on. You might be able to reach Lauren and I in there as well. And God, why is her name suddenly
Jessica?
Flying? Jessica, thank you. Good Lord. I was about to say, anyway, I'm vomiting now. Love you guys. And be sure we are every 2 weeks. So not next week, but the week after. Do we have a show set yet or to be announced?
Yes, we do. And we're going to try to get more of the Keystroke hosts from the Monday show. They've got so much going on in their lives right now, and you know, big apologies for not having the show, but it's understandable where they're at. But we're going to try to take a Friday night and come back together and talk about what makes a good story and satisfying reader expectations. This is Joshua Gayu. Josh Gayu was like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about making our audience happy and how we can do that and do like a roundtable discussion. So we're going to take that Friday off and make it happen.
Well, there you go. Check it out here on Keystroke Medium, where we got reading, writing, and everything in between on the writer's journey. Peace out, you guys.